We got lots to cover here. We're going to get into some summer league, some Kings news. I'll at least start because I know you were out at the series this weekend in West Sacramento between the A's and the Giants. And I was saying earlier, Sean, I mean, as far as Sacramento baseball, I thought it was a success. Now, if you're a Giants fan, you win 2 of 3. I'm not even talking per team per se, but the images, the way it looked. I've been at a ton of games. You've been at a ton of games. It just looked like, I mean, it's about as good as we can get under the circumstances here in Sacramento.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you look around, it was festive. I mean, it went beyond the ballpark. I mean, one of the things I love doing, I get there pretty early. It's the dumb part about covering baseball is, your manager speaking like 4 hours before the game and you have open a clubhouse. It's just an all day thing that's unnecessary, but it's just such a cool vibe. Like if you're driving across the Tower Bridge, you see all the people who are walking over. It reminds you of like, oh, you got big league baseball in town. Like they're not doing that for the River Cats. They're doing it. And yeah, you see a lot of like, visiting jerseys typically, even if the Giants aren't in town. But
right.
Yeah, that was very much a Giants crowd. And rightfully so. I mean, they made this an appointment destination to be at, to be able to support their team. And both teams kind of scuffling, certainly the A's and the Giants all of a sudden just drop off the face of the earth for these past 3 weeks after flirting with first place. But both teams really needed it, especially, with the All-Star announcements kind of hovering around. And it was just such a cool environment, especially on, I was there all 3 days. I left early on Saturday, but the 4th of July one I thought was the best. I saw the fireworks. I dipped out of there, but being able to come in on Saturday, see the Kings rookies kind of get their welcome and throw out some first pitches that were pretty wild, to say the least. I dipped to go to a concert that night. I was awful early, but then being there last night too, it was the lowest of the attended games. And you think about it, like you were there for the Yankee series, and 2 of the 3 of those games were the highest attended. The Mother's Day was the highest attended in Sutter Health Park for an A's game this season, and the Friday and Saturday ended up being the biggest draw. But Friday had topped it, and then Saturday topped Friday's game, and just electric. And then what Logan Webb was able to do in his hometown, and then the next day get an All-Star nod, just really, really kind of special stuff. And it was kind of cool seeing Logan talk about finding out becoming an All-Star while playing Granite Bay Country Golf Club for the first time with his dad and his brother, and getting to share that moment. It was so cool.
Yeah, I saw that you talked to him, and I think about him this year. I mean, I think he's having another awesome year. He's just, I mean, he really consistently is not getting the run support. How's he feeling about their situation? Because I mean, to me, he is the Giant. He is kind of the face of that team, and they're winning, but probably should be winning a little bit more if their offense was better. How's he feeling about his situation?
Pretty good. I mean, look, I think he keeps in mind, he's able to kind of separate the two. Like, look, Justin Verlander has been so bad since coming to the Giants, but he talks about what an influence he is, not only to himself, but really to the pitching staff. And like, it's something that really can't be explained. Like, we always talk about, like, we're trying to build a Kings roster or whatever, and go get this guy, go get that way. And it's you can never really have that true analytic. There's an analytic for everything, but there's not one for chemistry yet. And what he talks so glowingly about what Verlander has brought to him, and just the influence that he's had, and certainly the path that Robbie Ray has had coming back from Tommy John and working his way back to being an All-Star. And this year, Logan being able to share his All-Star appearance with 2 other pitchers. I mean, Randy Rodriguez is incredible. And what he's doing out of the bullpen is, and to be able to just share that with Robbie Ray, Randy Rodriguez, the influence Verlander's had. I mean, he's completely at peace. Like, he recognizes that, they have some scuffles and sometimes he doesn't get the run support, but as Robbie Ray said yesterday, it's like, no, everyone expects him to go out there and pitch 9 innings. I mean, he's been that dominant. And I think there's a little bit of a lingering memory from last year. Logan Webb gets his first All-Star nod, and it didn't go well. And so he says if he gets to pitch this year, he gets a shot at redemption, and it's in a ballpark that he's got a lot more familiarity with in Atlanta, where another place that he has a lot more support and friends in the area, and his family will certainly be there. So I think a lot of that matters. And but it's what's funny is talking to him, it's like, you got all these accolades, you just pitched a gem on Saturday, you get a much needed win after you got shelled on July 4th, And here you are, an all-star, and all he wants to ever talk about is the Kings. He's the biggest Kings fan. And every time he sees me, it's like, hey, are we getting Kuminga?
Right.
It's always something like that. And it dates back to high school. I mean, when he was a football player for the Rockland Thunder, I didn't even know him as a baseball player at that time. He was a backup quarterback. And I remember going to a practice and just he's there on the sideline. I wasn't paying him any attention, and I'm setting up my camera to talk to the head coach, Greg Benzel at the time, and one of the other guys. And he just he's sitting on the ground, and I think he was hurt. I don't remember what the injury is. And he just kind of looks up with me with that squinted face, and he just goes, "Hey, the Kings going to be any good this year?" I start laughing, and I'm just like, "No, probably not." And they weren't, and he understood, but he's just a diehard Kings fan.
Well, let's go there. I know you were at the press conference the other day. Saw you out there to introduce the new Kings. That was their draft choices in Nick Clifford and Maxime Reynaud. Just curious your thoughts on the picks, on how you think they may be able to help this squad this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you always wonder where the Kings are and how a draft pick can certainly help them. And I'd always argue that they won't. A young player takes time to develop, and even if you're getting a player that's longer in the tooth, like these guys are, they're going to have time to develop. And how can they help a good team? And then you look at a team like the Thunder, who have young pieces all over the place, and their development has happened rather quickly. Not to say that it'll have the same effect, but when talking to these guys, they're very impressive. I mean, I think personality-wise, their charm, their wit, certainly their smarts. I mean, Maxime Reynaud is just brilliant. He's just brilliant. He's very, very smart. And it leaps off the page. I think people hear that and they go, okay, great. What do they do on the basketball floor? But getting to know some of these guys, like with Nick Clifford, for example, like personality, like I wouldn't say he's in the Tyrese Halliburton category quite yet, because he was a Hall of Famer in the media game and being just a human being right out of the gate. But he's kind of dipping a toe in there. Like you can see instantly just how infectious his personality is, how warm and inviting he is. I mean, this guy makes time for everybody. And you're kind of like, you're thinking to yourself as a media member, great, don't change. Like keep that same energy. But that's not just with the energy with the media. You see it with the fans. I mean, he stops for everybody. He gives everybody time. So it's really cool. It'll be fun to see how that kind of develops along the way. But from a pure basketball standpoint, like I didn't know anything about Nick Clifford, really. I mean, doing a little bit of homework before the draft, seeing his name, didn't really think much that would be a possibility. I know among names that they had liked going in there, that name I had heard a little bit, but it wasn't something that I ever thought was going to be a realistic possibility. And there it is. I mean, they land him, and learning a lot about him and people around him as coaches, people who have just talk about what he is. It's like they talk so much glowingly about the adversity he's faced and some of the things he's had to overcome, and how it didn't go so well at Colorado, but he was loyal and wanted to stay close to home, and then he was ready to go to Loyola Chicago. He was ready to go to Stanford, and then one of the teams that initially drafted him and the coach recruited him, and then the team that he goes to Colorado State, with having that loyalty and wanting to be able to shine and kind of overcome some adversity and having opportunity in the age of NIL, having being there for being a senior is just so rare. So I kind of like what's happening. You see when he plays, and just the leaps that he's taken, being a point guard when he was younger to all of a sudden being more of a wing player. Loving the fact that he looks at himself as being able to be a multi-positional type player, being able to guard that way, and then everyone raving about his playmaking ability. I mean, Jason, you hear that, and then it's not even mentioning just the rebounding, how elite that has been for him. So I think a lot of that will translate well. Reynaud is just a guy, I mean, being 7 foot and you can stretch the floor that way, awesome. I mean, you get that rim protection, and you can kind of see it. I mean, people are raving about him. So I think there's something to be excited about. But certainly the Kings have a lot of offseason left.
Oh, yeah, and we're going to get into some more of that as we're talking with Sean Cunningham from KCRA, Channel 3 sports reporter there. Sean, about a couple of days, the Kings will be heading to Vegas. So Reynaud's going there, Nick Clifford, but it's also Isaac Jones, Mason Jones, Devin Carter, Cardwell, some guys that are going to be, opportunities to, get more eyeballs on them to see what they could do. What are some of your expectations, or what would you like to see from that group coming up here in a few days?
Yeah, I think before going down there, the thing that I'm kind of hyper focused on, aside from the two rookies, is honestly Devin Carter.
Yep.
If he doesn't get moved, I want to see. He didn't get this opportunity last year because of injury, and of course, he had some flashes during the regular season. And I think if you go to social media, they're not kind to Devin Carter. But I still think that he has a lot to offer. I think there's still a lot of mystery that surrounds his game, and you know, just an absolute competitor. And so I want to see how that translates to haphazard basketball, like summer league, where everyone's just trying to make a name for themselves, trying to catch attention. Both ends up being good and bad, but um, in a team environment where there's going to be a lot of kind of, I don't want to say household names, but familiar names to Kings fans. You rattled off a few there, but even last year's rookie two-way Isaiah Crawford, I think has a big opportunity here, because I think a lot of what he does has flown under the radar. He hasn't really had opportunity yet. He's so young still, and I think his game, I don't mean his age so much, I really mean his game just needs a maturing, a seasoning, if you will, and had a chance really recently. They're in the break right now, but the oldest Sacramento Summer League, they call it the Sac Pro-Am. It's a Sac Pro Developmental League. It happens out in Elk Grove off of Bighorn. You get on Bighorn, you keep driving like you're heading to Galt. You'll find it. There's a place called Fortune High School, something like that. And Isaiah Jones and Isaiah Crawford have shown up to prepare for Summer League out there. Once Summer League is over, teams will begin playing again. I'm not sure that you'll see some Kings players out there, but we've even seen Keon Ellis show up to compete in that summer league out there. So it dates back to the 80s. Used to have guys like LaSalle Thompson, Mitch Richmond, just a ton of old Kings that would used to play in this thing. So you never know who's going to pop up, but it's fun to see a lot of G leaguers and overseas players, and these guys show up and they've played well. It's a confidence builder. They try to work on some things, and one of the things you see is Isaac trying to shoot the three more, Isaiah working on a lot of ball handling stuff. So trying to hone in their games and work on their craft. And I think there's a lot of storylines heading into Vegas, and I'm looking forward to that.
How about what the Kings have done so far through free agency and or the /trade? So they've added Saric via the trade. Eubanks is just an additional kind of big body that they could have. And then Schroeder is the biggest piece as far as the free agent point guard signing. Not a huge splash there by any means, some out of necessity, but what do you think about what they did as Scott Perry's moves there?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, they found their point guard. I think Kings fans are going through this roller coaster right now on will they or won't they trade Malik Monk, and are they in on Jonathan Kuminga? And I don't really have anything to add on any of those. I mean, certainly anything is possible at this point, but with Kuminga, the last I had heard on that is that they were nowhere close. So I think that's kind of bared fruit as we get into Monday. You've got the moratorium lifting. People are signing contracts. You have 7-team trade in the NBA. We hadn't seen that before. I think some of those things tend to hold up a lot of the activity that tend to trickle down. And I think Sacramento is in on a lot of things right now. I still think that, Russell Westbrook is something that could be a possibility. Obviously has a tie to Scott Perry from when he was in Seattle under Sam Presti at the time. I don't know if I agree with a lot of them. I kind of see what they're trying to do. But certainly there's a lot of concerns with all these teams about cap flexibility, remaining under the luxury tax, aprons, all that stuff. And those things can be really difficult for fans to kind of hear about, because I think right away you're thinking about your team as them being cheap. And I assure you that's not the case, because everybody is trying to do the same things. And what I'd always argue is it's one thing to be a luxury tax team when you're a top 4 team in the Western Conference and you're competing for something. It's another thing to be in that when you're a mediocre or even a bad team. So a lot of decision making has to go into all these things, and I think you're going to see more and more until I think 2011 when the collective bargaining, 2031 when the collective bargaining deal can be renegotiated. I think you're going to see a lot of these types of seasons where there's just so much movement, so much activity, and teams really trying to make trades that really just free them up money to where that they can operate going forward. I think the Kings have done an interesting job. I wouldn't rave about the offseason they have, but I'd also, remind people it's July 7th. There's so much offseason left, and I think they're in a really unique position to where, they've chosen not to hit a complete reset button. They want to remain competitive. I think that's admirable to a degree. But I think just one move here or there can obviously get them back in the conversation. The landscape in the NBA changes very, very quickly. And I'd say right now it's looking like a discombobulated team. At least they found their point guard, but there you can see what the vision with Scott Perry's trying to do. He wants to add two-way players, competitive players, guys that you look on other teams and you go, oh yeah, why don't the Kings have somebody like that? And so there could be some tough decisions along the way, but I think I see the vision, and I think they're on the right track.
You mentioned you didn't have anything really new on Kuminga, and I've heard some of the same stuff that I don't even want to say not as far along, just maybe it's kind of nowhere at the moment. But if we look at Kuminga versus Westbrook, different players, but if those are options for the Kings, what's the better? Obviously, Kuminga would come at a price of some other players. Westbrook could be just an addition, but what do you think would be better for the Kings of those two choices?
Honestly, that's a tough one. That's a tough question for me to answer, because I think just on its surface, I mean, one's on its way out and the other one's got a blossoming future. And Kuminga has so much talent that easily, in my opinion, gets here, and he's probably the second most talented, if not the most talented player on the team. That's not to say he's the best player. I don't want people to hear that differently than what's intended, but I mean, he's got such a high ceiling. The thing to me is, in talking to people close to Kuminga and obviously around the Warriors and other teams forever, it's like Kuminga has a vision in mind. I mean, if he comes to Sacramento, 5 years under his belt, he's still younger than all the rookies that they drafted. He's still younger than Devin Carter. Like, this guy is ready for his moment. He's in control to a degree. I mean, restricted free agency is just awful for anybody, even the teams, I would argue. I mean, it's just even if you have a team that wants to sign you, which is rare these days because no one has the money to do it, and commit to you, all of a sudden your team can decide whether or not they want to keep you or match or whatever. And at this point, it almost makes more sense for him to go back to the Warriors. But I think, from Kuminga's standpoint and from what I've been told, this guy is absolutely looking for something that can be built around him, where he's featured prominently within that offense and on that team. And that's what he wants. And I think coming to Sacramento, as they're currently built, doesn't really jive here. I mean, you've got obviously some big time scorers who need the ball quite often. And even if Kuminga represents your future for the time being, that's how they're set up. So Westbrook might make more sense in the short term, but I think for them to be successful, I honestly feel that Kuminga is a move that they'd almost have to do, in comparison to Russ, who's kind of on his way out and just kind of maybe looking to get somebody into the playoffs and maybe see what happens in the 7-game series. One thing with Russ, though, I mean, he played so well with Denver last year. He really played really well with someone like Nikola Jokic. Domantas Sabonis is a similar type of presence on the floor, and that could bode well for them if they get him. But I just personally, I don't think the Kings need Russell Westbrook. And so if you're able to get in on a talent like Kuminga and represent something where you're rebuilding into a different era, looking on something beyond 2027, because if you look at their books, like they hit 2027, everything falls off a cliff. Right. That wouldn't happen if you have somebody like Kuminga. That wouldn't happen if you're extending Keon Ellis or extending Keegan Murray later this summer. So he kind of represents something fresh and new going forward. And I think if they do that in the comparison of him or Russ, I'd go Kuminga.
All right, last one for you, Sean. Again, great spending time with Sean Cunningham from KCRA Channel 3. All right, it feels like between Keon, Malik, I guess Carter, Levine, DeRozan, like I guess Keegan even, they got to move at least 1 to 2 of those. And I'm not saying that's super easy to do. It feels like it's a little bit quiet right now. I mean, don't you see that there's going to be some trades here, at least with the Kings? Don't you feel?
Yeah, I've always felt that trades for this offseason, even before they get into the season, I think is going to be where they do most of their damage, most of their rebuilding. I think, especially when you're holding on to some of these trade exceptions, these literal coupons that you can go and move for players. I mean, it's those are really worth a lot of worth their weight in gold for a lot of these teams that are struggling to get under these aprons and luxury tax and things like that without having to bring anything back. So I think you'll start to see the offloading begin shortly in terms of some of these big contracts that teams want to get off of, and that could benefit Sacramento. But yeah, I've always felt the trade market is where the Sacramento Kings will be at their most potent and where they can capitalize the most. But also realizing that they have decisions to be made, and you're not going to make a move just to make a move. And I think also the feeling around the league is much like maybe with how it was in the previous regime, is sometimes people tend to think Sacramento Kings have to operate out of a sense of desperation. You get a new GM in there, and knowing that he works for an owner like Vivek Ranadive, patience sometimes isn't in the vocabulary, and it doesn't enter the chat. So I think much like if you're playing fantasy sports, people will try to take advantage of that guy in the room, take advantage of that guy in the league, and see what they can do. And I think there's a lot of weeding out. So I think you've been through the weeding out process. You've pulled a trigger on a few moves. They've been probably mostly lackluster to a lot of Kings fans, but I'm not saying there's a blockbuster on the horizon, but I think they've positioned themselves well to be able to pull a trigger on a major move when it presents itself or when they find one. But in the meantime, I think the trade market is just where their bread will be buttered, whether it's this offseason, next offseason, and even leading up to the deadline.
All right. That's Sean Cunningham from KCRA. We always appreciate your work. I know we'll see each other in Vegas, and maybe that's where we can hang out and get some of that street food, I guess.
Oh, do we trust Vegas street food?
No,
That one, that's a little bit different, sir.
Okay, so I thought I would throw that out there. I know we'll find plenty of good places to go. I know that.
We should. Did you see F1 yet?
I did not.
As someone who often taps into myself to recommend movies, I would recommend that to you.
Okay, so another person that validates that. Did you see it in IMAX?
No, but I did one of those XD showings, which in my mind is maybe just as good. But I mean, if anyone hears this, they're going to go, "Oh, you've heard it before. Young up and comer, mentored or teams up with a has been or never was old guy." Like, yes, it's a sports cliche, but the stuff they do inside that car, and I'm not an F1 guy or NASCAR guy, which is kind of crazy because I've spent my past couple weeks interviewing a bunch of NASCAR people because Sonoma is right around the corner this week.
Yeah,
it was that was fun, man. It was a lot of fun. I think you'd love it.
Well, better than I said it earlier. I saw Jurassic Park, whatever the new one is. It's okay. It's
man.
Yeah, I'm not recommending it. It's fine. I wouldn't say don't go, but it's
Scarlett Johansson, though.
Yeah, well, there we go. That was a hit.
There we go. Yeah.
All right, Sean, thank you so much. Appreciate it, and we'll see you in Vegas.
Yes, you will. See you, buddy.
All right, thank you. That is Sean Cunningham. We appreciate him getting us some insight on the Kings and where they might be going here. Kuminga still could be a thing. Westbrook could still be a thing.